All right, today we're jumping into four huge stories, pulled straight from the latest debates on the All In podcast. And trust me, each one of these is a signal of a massive shift in power, money, and technology. So let's get right into it, starting with a battle that's brewing at the very core of the American economy.
And we kick things off with a question that honestly gets to the heart of our entire economic stability. Is America's central bank, the one institution that's supposed to be above politics, now just another weapon in the political toolkit?
Now, this isn't just some abstract academic debate. Oh no. A recent, totally unprecedented clash between the White House and the Federal Reserve has really thrown this issue right into the spotlight.
On the podcast, they walked through this pretty explosive but totally plausible future scenario. Just imagine this for a second. Fed Governor Lisa Cook gets accused of mortgage fraud. Then, a future President Trump does something that's never been done before. He fires her for cause. What happens next? Well, she immediately sues, saying the whole thing is illegal. This would spark a constitutional crisis.
And this gets us right to the heart of the debate. On one side, you have the argument that, come on, the Fed's independence is a total myth. Governors are political appointees, right? So a president should be able to align the Fed with the agenda the voters actually chose. But on the other hand, there's the classic view. The Fed has to be independent to make those tough, long-term calls without bending to whatever political wind is blowing. That's the whole reason governors get those super long 14-year terms. And if you want an example for the political Fed theory, David Sachs points right at Chair Jerome Powell. The argument is that back in 2021, Powell kept pushing that inflation is transitory narrative, mostly to stay on the good side of the Biden administration and lock in his own renomination. Sachs claims that delaying those rate hikes is what directly caused that massive asset bubble and, well, the painful crash that came after.
But of course, there's a counter-argument. And it says that, hey, maybe the Fed's actions are just being misinterpreted, that the decisions, even if they weren't perfect, were based on the economic data they had at the time. I mean, the board is made up of both Trump and Biden appointees, and they've mostly voted together. So it leaves you wondering, was it really political maneuvering, or was it an honest, data-driven mistake?
Okay, so this whole debate about government power and influence, it doesn't stop with the Fed. Our second story shows a really radical shift in how the government is thinking about industrial policy. It seems like Uncle Sam is ditching the old playbook and becoming a full-on venture capitalist.
And we are not talking about a small-time experiment here. To get a sense of the scale, just look at this number, $8.5 billion. That's the value of a grant the government swapped for a 10% stake in Intel, all part of the push to bring chip manufacturing back to the U.S.
So here's how this new playbook works. Instead of just handing out cash with no strings attached, the government now picks a strategic industry, puts up the capital, but, and this is the key part, it takes a piece of the company in return. The big idea is to let the American taxpayers share in the success that they helped create, just like a VC firm.
But wait a minute, this opens up a fascinating and really critical question. If we the people now own a chunk of these giant companies, what exactly do we do with that stock? Who manages it? And who really benefits?
Well, a few options were kicked around. The equity could just, sit on the government's books. Or it could be used to create a brand new U.S. sovereign wealth fund. But honestly, the most interesting idea that came up was this. What if you used these assets to help fill that massive hole in the Social Security Trust Fund? I mean, that could potentially secure retirement for millions of Americans. So, while the government is busy investing in some parts of the economy, the wider market is facing let's call it a harsh reality. And that brings us to story number 3, a massive wave of corporate bankruptcies is hitting the country. And there's a huge debate about why it's happening right now.
And the numbers, they're pretty stark. So far this year, we are seeing the most large corporate bankruptcies since 2010, which was right after the great financial crisis. We're on track for a 15-year high. So the question is, what is going on here?
Well, there are two main theories. Theory number 1 is that this is actually a good thing. Painful, yes, but healthy. It's creative destruction. See, for a decade, we had zero interest rates, which basically created all these zombie companies that should have gone under years ago. Now, the free money is gone, and they're finally failing. Theory number 2 is that this is all about the Fed's aggressive rate hikes, which are just hammering sectors that are loaded with debt, especially commercial real estate, which is facing this massive wall of debt it can't refinance.
Okay, so from all that economic turbulence today, our final story is going to leap way into the future. We're talking about a mind-blowing breakthrough where AI and biology are coming together, and it might just give us a peek at a world where aging itself can be reversed.
Now, to get this, you first need to know about something called Yamanaka factors. The simplest way to think of them is like a cellular reset button. They're these 4 proteins that can take an old, specialized cell, like a skin cell, and turn it back into a young, do-anything stem cell. The potential here for rejuvenation is just enormous.
But here's the catch. The original factors are super inefficient. But then, and this is the incredible part, OpenAI trained an AI model specifically to design new proteins to do this job better. And the result? It was staggering. The new AI-designed proteins were 50 times more effective. That's not just a little bit better. That is a revolutionary leap past a Nobel Prize-winning discovery.
So what's the big takeaway here? This is proof. Proof that AI can tackle some of the absolute hardest problems in biology. This isn't just a cool lab experiment. It's a bright, flashing sign that we are on a real path to creating therapies that could one day slow, stop, or maybe even reverse the aging process. All right, let's pull back and connect the dots. We've talked about the Fed, government investing, a bankruptcy wave, and a huge scientific breakthrough. They seem pretty separate, right? But what do they tell us when we look at them all together?
You see, each of these stories is a signal that we're shifting from an old playbook to a new one. The Federal Reserve? It's going from a quiet, apolitical institution to a contested political battlefield. Industrial policy? Forget free grants, now the government's a venture capitalist. The economy? It's moving from an era where zombie companies could survive forever to a painful but necessary return of creative destruction. And science? It's shifting from slow, human-led research to these insanely fast, AI-driven breakthroughs. When you put it all together, these aren't just 4 stories. They are 4 signs that the old rules are breaking down, and a whole new set of forces are starting to take over.
So that leaves us with one really powerful question for the future. We're in this moment where our oldest institutions are being tested like never before, while technology is accelerating faster than we can comprehend. As all of these new playbooks are being written in real time, the biggest question is, which one of them is going to be the one that actually defines the next decade?